Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council. We acknowledge that the land that we meet on is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. And before we begin, I do ask you to turn off your mobile phones or put them on silent and remind you to use your hands up little symbol when you wish to speak. I welcome all residents, ratepayers who have joined our meeting as it is being live streamed and recorded, and that copies of our agendas are to be found on the council website. There are no apologies. 3.1, identification of conflicts of interest by elected members. None being declared now, so that there's likely to be one later this evening. Leave of absence, nil. Confirmation of minutes. I'm seeking someone to move. Councillor Piggott, you're moving, and Councillor Turnbull seconding. Those in favour? Carried. There are no deputations, no petitions, and public question time is temporarily suspended. There were questions asked by Councillor Turnbull, and I believe that they have been forwarded. Motion on notice 10.1, and that is Councillor Davey.
Sorry, Councillor Davies having an IT issue, so we just if we pause for just a minute.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, can we just go to 11 and 12 and come back?
Yes.
I'd like to go to 11 and 12 while we're having, apparently Councillor Davies having some IT issues. Are there any questions without notice or any motions without notice?
Except from the previous one.
Councillor Dawes, Lemon, Carbone and Hughes, can you put your hands down? Unless, of course, you have something you wish to ask. Thank you.
We could.
Can we can't really.
Notice,
yeah, no, there weren't any. No questions without notice, no motions without notice. Reports of officers, we really can't go through those because Councillor Davey may wish to withdraw.
Having said that, if she's chosen to not be in the meeting.
No, she's having technology problems.
Yeah, she's not here. Do we?
Same time.
It's up to you. Technically, otherwise it's finished.
Can we go to 14?
Yeah, yes.
All right, look, I'm going to move to item 14 on the agenda since we can't really do any of those others yet. East Waste Management, nil. Eastern Authority, nil. Highbury Landfill, nil. Era Water. We have to move to receive those board minutes, don't we? So if someone would like to move that. 14.4, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Lemon. Those in favour?
But it looks like it should be working.
6. Oh, there's one down the bottom. No, that's
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh wait,
Thought Martin Gruber had his hand up with that mistake.
that's okay.
All right, carried. Nothing from Eastern Regional Alliance or Brown Hill Creek. Seek a mover for the Mayor's report. Might as well do that one and then we'll go back.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Seconded, Councillor Jones. All in favour? Carried. So we've done all of those. And I might as well, while we're on it, reports of members, delegates and working parties. If you have anything you wish to add, please forward it to Rob. So we've done 16 and 17, there are nil. And now we will go back to motions on notice. Councillor Davey. Item 10, 10.1.
So can you hear me, everybody? And can I just see the motion, please? Can you just scroll down, please, Rob? I can't see the... Rob, can you hear me? Can you... Have you got sound?
Excuse me, Councillor David, just a moment. We've just seen a question without notice from Councillor Cornish. We will come back to that after this. No, you're saying no?
You happy to move on, Councillor Cornish?
Happy to move on, Councillor Cornish? Yep. Okay, thank you.
Can everybody hear me? Do I have to turn my sound up or?
No, you're fine, Jane.
Thank you. It's just, can you make the font bigger, please, Rob, on the motion? I can't read it. Thank you. So my motion is that, down a little bit. Can you just scroll down a little bit? Okay, thank you. The Council rescind parts 1, 2, 7 and 8 of Council Resolution C-12489 of 14th of April 2020, allowing Council to resume from the date of from the 1st of July. If you could change that. (2020), routine face-to-face meetings in the Burnside Civic Centre, consistent with COVID-19 requirements, comma, social distancing, and any plans required by any local government applicable legislation. 2, designate the council chamber or the community centre halls at the civic centre as the meeting room for future council and committee meetings until resolved otherwise, and make the necessary changes to the code of practice, access to meetings and documents, code of practice, and local meeting procedures to facilitate the above. Thanks, Rob. I've moved this motion tonight as I believe it's timely for us to review our meeting arrangements as the community graduates from lockdown, from the whole time in March and April when we went into lockdown. We've all made many sacrifices to manage this virus, the administration, us as individuals, our family, business, and the community. But now conditions are easing, with shops full, restaurants holding small sittings, our library increasing borrower numbers, and there's even an AFL game for 2,240 spectators at Adelaide Oval on Saturday. Legal advice reassures us that council meetings are not subject to prohibited gathering controls as long as there is no public attendance and social distancing is maintained for a maximum of 20 people, which is councillors and associated essential council support staff. Last week, I attended a very well-managed CAP meeting in the council chamber where there was a mix of 18 people in attendance for most of the 3.5+ hours. I can't see any reason why this cannot be achieved also for our council meetings now with the skilled management of our administration. The costs to extend cabling for IT and microphones to new revised seating is minimal, and I believe that's about $4,300. So we can maintain live streaming of the meeting for our community. While respecting the ongoing threat to our community from the virus, I believe it's our duty to work to restore business continuity and that council is more cohesive, efficient and effective when we meet face to face. Once, hopefully, if this motion is seconded, I'll ask some questions of the CEO to, or hopefully other people might, to ascertain his views in terms of what provisions he might need. But after 2 months of video meetings, it'll be very good for everyone to resume normal meetings, I believe. So I hope someone will second this and support it. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Davis, you're seconding it?
Yeah, more than happy to second it. But before I speak, could we hear Councillor Davies' questions?
Oh, thank you. My question was to the CEO is this an onerous responsibility, and what location would you find is most amenable? Is the chamber doable for, in your opinion, a meeting, or would you recommend another site at Civic Centre?
Through Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Davey. So I guess in response, I have a three-tiered view on this. But given the options of either the community, I think we call it the community centre, or the chamber, my preference would be for the community centre on a number of reasons. One, given this, if the resolution gets up, we could implement the community centre almost immediately. There would be no IT impediment to setting up. And I believe the larger space in the community centre would be more conducive for assisting managing people's anxieties, perhaps, around coming back together. The chamber is quite a small space. Whilst we have done some preliminary measurements and it is technically feasible to get the 1.5 metres of distance between us all. And when I say us all, it would be just elected members, myself and Rob in the room. It is ultimately a smaller space, and I think meeting together for periods of time, often up to 4 hours, I know myself, speaking personally, I would feel much more comfortable for the safety of my staff and elected members meeting in a larger space where there is not the feeling of perhaps being quite so enclosed as the chamber. With the chamber, yes, we could make changes. However, they are reasonably significant and time consuming, and that's why, and I thank Councillor Davey for inserting the 1st of July date there, because to go into the chamber would take time to get the IT purchases and installation. And then there will be the issue of undoing those changes when we come back. And my preferred approach, if this is the direction council wishes, is to use the community centre building, leave the chamber as it is, and then once we are given the clearance by the Premier to meet together again without the restrictions of social distancing, then go back to the chamber and conduct ourselves as we have in the past. Thank you.
Councillor Davis?
Yep, I'd like to speak. I think that it's certainly achievable. Thank you to the CEO for that explanation. Obviously, it's something we can achieve. I think that a lot is lost when you're on Zoom. I mean, how long did it take Councillor Davey to even get connected? Like as soon as it switched over, she couldn't even log into the meeting. And so I think that there are significant threats there. You know, even if you have a motion or if you're in the middle of speaking, there are threats to the way that we conduct our business. And if we can meet safely in accordance with the South Australian guidelines promoted by the government, which we can do, which we absolutely can do, and other councils are doing it, then we should absolutely do so and try to get back as close as we can to normal. You'll note now also that we're on Zoom. There is nothing stopping us from even using our computers to have that microphone there. So we can actually have a very similar setup, and then the only thing would be microphone feedback. So ensuring that only one person's microphone is live at a time, it would entirely be possible to continue a Zoom meeting in the same room. So to my mind, I don't think it would be that difficult, or otherwise we could just use a phone, and phones are pretty good these days. So to my mind, it would actually be very simple to do, and I think it would bring a lot to our meetings. It would relieve incidents like we had tonight when Councillor Davey, she had to completely restart her computer in order to speak to this motion. And so that's why I'm in favour of it. And I think that if we can do it in compliance with the health professionals' advice, which we absolutely can, then we should proceed and do that. I mean, Councillor Hubel's light just went off, for example, in the elected members' room, and mine's about to go off here in a second. There are significant challenges that detract us from our business. So, yeah, in my view, we should be getting back to normal, complying with our obligations. That's why I'll be supporting it. Oh, I didn't even have a charger. Hold on.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Mayor Monso. I've just got a question of the CEO, whether or not the new town hall would be also an opportunity or available for use for this purpose.
That's a great idea.
Through Madam Mayor, it's certainly a venue that we considered. The key drawback there is the acoustics. It's a very echoey room. And again, trying to get away without requiring an IT setup. The acoustics in that community centre building are actually designed for a space that doesn't require electronic enhancement.
All good. Thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Mine was a similar question and probably got a similar answer. I was wondering why the ballroom wasn't considered.
Two different reasons where we considered there. One, there's a significant traffic noise that continues, and also the inability to temperature control that room as well as other rooms.
Thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. Are other councils also doing this transition at the moment?
Yep.
And the second question is the practical side of elected member breakout time. Where will that happen and what facilities will there be?
Through Madam Mayor, the answer to the first question about are other councils doing this, the short answer is yes, but every council has its own nuances. So, for example, there are some councils I'm aware of that have a smaller number of elected members, but have considerably large chambers. So to achieve social distancing for them has been much easier. Some have different IT setups, which means they don't have the same constraints that we have. I know Norwood, Payneham, St Peters has been thrown around as a council that's doing a hybrid option at the moment, where they're having some elected members in the chamber and some at home. The reports are that it's not working as well as it sounds in theory. My recommendation to council would be to pick one or the other. Don't try and do a half measure. And sorry, Councillor Henschke, I've just forgotten the last part of your question.
Thank you. In regards to if the meeting goes for 4 hours, we usually have a break.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Sorry about that. Through Madam Mayor, we would have to comply with the state's guidelines around social distancing. So there's a couple of things we couldn't do. We still aren't able to provide food. Breaks for members are okay, but you would not be able to have your breaks all together, and you would not be able to have them in there. For example, if we went back to the chamber, the elected members' room is not large enough for all elected members to be in that space all at once. Having said that, the community centre area is a much larger space, and we may have more areas for breakout. So that would be an easier area to try and accommodate elected members having a break. Hopefully that clarifies.
Thank you.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to the CFO if I can. You talked about your preferred model about going into the community centre. Can we get some costs associated with implementing that, and then obviously dismantling or changing back to the original community centre? So the whole cost of going into the community centre and then out of it and then back into the chamber.
Three, Madam Mayor. Just want to be clear. I'm talking about my preferred option of the two presented before you. The costs that we've received, we had an independent IT provider come in today and provide us with some quotations. So to set up the chamber to allow social distancing, because essentially we would have to take all the designed furniture that completes that half ring at the minute out and replace it probably with some more simplistic furniture. And that was $4,300. And then once we were out of the requirement for social distancing, there would be a cost of $3,000 to remove that technology and restore us back to our existing operation. Okay.
Sorry, Your Worship.
I'm sorry if I may, through you, Madam Mayor. To clarify, that was the cost to set up in the chamber. In the community centre, because of the superior sound acoustics, we would not be envisaging any IT costs. So the cost to set up in the community centre, apart from some officer time, is essentially zero.
Okay. Couple of supplementary questions, if I may, Your Worship.
Certainly.
Okay, seems like a lot of work is going on here. And I suppose another question to the CEO is, what is the time frame that we're looking at here? And when do you think we will be able to return back to the chamber and sit, normally?
When the Premier decides no more social distancing.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. If I knew the answer to that one, I'd go and buy myself a lottery ticket. We can only make some educated assumptions about that. My best guess is that we will be required to socially distance for some time yet. A matter of months, I would say. We've seen a relaxing of the numbers of people that are allowed in venues, but what we haven't seen is a relaxing of the requirement of social distance. So I think that requirement probably will be in place, in my mind, for the next 3 to 5 months. But again, that's an educated assumption.
And
can I just reply also? The Premier said today on the radio that he's meeting daily with the medical people. He is not ready yet to move to stage 3, and stage 3 is determined by whether or not there are any implications as a result of even the protest march on the weekend, and also all the other openings in relation to restaurants and cafes, etc., as to whether or not they are ready to make that move to the next stage. And he would not give an answer when he was asked at lunchtime on the radio either.
Your Worship, one lucky last one, if I may.
Certainly.
Just a question to the CEO again. I noticed that public question time is not included in this rescission motion. So the resolution or the motion is that we go back to all things normal almost, except public question time. That one for some reason got missed out. Is there any reason why we could not, say, for example, move into the community centre and bring back public question time?
Through Madam Mayor, I think it wasn't missed. It was certainly something we gave consideration to. I think the view that we should take with this one is we'll call it cautious optimism. And I think we view this as a first step. If council is of a mind to do this, view that as a first step. Let's ensure it's working. Keep monitoring the Premier's messaging, and then understand how quickly we then progress further out. So my recommendation here is to hasten slowly.
Okay, just as long as it's not a sneaky manoeuvre to get rid of it, that's all.
Look, please rest assured, through Madam Mayor, we acknowledge that public question time is an important part of our democratic process, and when the opportunity presents and it's prudent, we will recommend reintroduction.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for the CEO. I just wanted to understand, if we do go to the community centre, I'm guessing there's not microphones. I think Councillor Davis talked about microphones on our computer, and if there's no feedback or whatever, we could use that. But what was envisaged if you move the community centre? Do we have to shout, or just tell me how that would work as regards having a council meeting?
Through Madam Mayor, we have done a preliminary setup of that room, and the acoustics work extremely well in that room. The roof tiles aid in being able to achieve what I'll call a regular conversational style debate without needing to raise your voice to be heard. So we believe that we can facilitate the meeting without needing electronic amplification. Worst case scenario, we do have an option of a cheap option of roving microphones should they be required. There is a setup there, but I don't believe we will need them. In terms of recording the meeting and streaming it to the community, we will have a central point where there is a camera with a very sensitive microphone, which will be recording and transmitting out through YouTube.
And as regards order of speaking, how is that controlled?
The mayor would manage that as the mayor would manage that as it would have been managed prior to electronic aids that we have in the chamber now. And the mayor, it would be going back to old school. Put your hand up, indicate speaking, and then I would assist the mayor in managing that process and getting to people in time.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? I have nobody's hand up. Oh, someone. Yes, Councillor Henschke. Now it's gone. Councillor Henschke.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If we continue in the community hall, which sounds like the most cost-effective option, will we impact the community in due course that might have been using that room on a Tuesday night? How will that be managed as things kind of get back to normal? I guess we'll probably move into the chamber by then, but anyway, I just thought, we're just thinking of the community meetings that might be happening.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Henschke. Certainly give that consideration. And at this point in time, the constraints of COVID-19 have meant we haven't been able to restart a lot of our community programs. So we feel it will be some months before we can even consider getting community groups back in that facility.
Okay.
And even at that point, we are only looking at using it on 2 nights of the month, and we feel that we should be able to manage that situation should this arrangement have to continue into the longer term.
Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. As one of the older members of this committee, I feel safer at home. Also, I have learnt how to use Zoom now, and I can wear my old track pants and I love it. So I would like to stay at home using Zoom for as long as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes. It's Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question for the CEO. If we go back, I couldn't possibly support going back to the chamber. If we go back to the community centre, will we have all the staff there? And what do the staff think about the idea of us summoning them back? Because that's a question. I won't make a speech.
I'll take the second part first. In coming back, I would only have the minimum amount of staff required. So in the community centre, it would be myself, Mr. Cant, Mr. Cooper, and Mr. Dabrowski. In terms of my preferred position as a CEO is to continue with the status quo. having said that, providing commentary on the motion that's before us this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to support Councillor Turnbull. I do understand Councillor Davies' frustration, which I do share. However, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I would not rely on one lawyer's opinion. I would rely on the health opinion, and that's been quite clearly stated to us. I don't think we've reached the stage that Councillor Davies has spoken about. We're very close. We're so follow the state government pathway, their roadmap. I'm hoping we'll be ready in July. I know it says the 1st of July, but I just want to be patient. I don't want to rush this thing. I know I'm in the same age group as Councillor Turnbull, and we're more vulnerable than others. But I just feel like if you have a problem with the Zoom technology, then do seek assistance from Mr. Spearman, as I have, and I found his advice very valuable to me. But we have been operating well. We have had little technology glitches every now and again. But again, I make the point, let's be healthy and safe, and let's be patient. Thank you.
Councillor Hubel.
Timing is quite interesting that I've just been plunged into darkness as it's my turn to speak. Look, I'm finding this a really interesting motion. It certainly is one where we're debating our personal preferences on how we go about our business. It's not necessarily, well, there's a very small part of it, but it's not necessarily, it is quite unique, and I think, you know, needs us to look at things a little bit differently. But I do want to, I guess, share my thinking on this, is that I've got an incredible amount of faith in the CEO and the administration, and to make a decision on our transition as best suits the community and the staff. And so I won't be supporting this motion, as much as I appreciate Councillor Davey driving this issue. I think it's a wonderful thing that we're talking about this, but my vote, I guess, goes with the status quo and letting the CEO steer us back to normal.
Councillor Pickett.
Thank you. Could I a question, CEO? What's our current policy in regard to staff working from home? I will make a link.
Through Madam Mayor, so we put in place a revised COVID-19 working from home policy. So we certainly have a policy in place which facilitates working from home given the current situation.
And is there any? What's the plan to? Is there a plan to scale that back at some point?
There certainly is. So the team, Matt is leading a team developing what we call the transition back plan. We're just waiting until we get, I guess, the next milestone, and it's likely to be stage 3 when that's announced by the Premier. Because if you remember the 3 stages, stage 1 and 2 were where the government was still supporting staff to work from home. Stage 3 was the stage where they were actually looking to encourage staff to get back into the office. So I guess we're still monitoring the Premier's rhetoric and waiting for that guidance. But we certainly have a plan in place ready to transition staff back.
So just to clarify, so assuming that stage 3, when stage 3 comes through, that includes a recommendation for staff to return to work, and it's certainly not a recommendation at the moment or currently that staff don't attend work, but you see that as the trigger in terms of bringing people back into the council.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you that there's been a softening in the position and in some of the language, but again, we're taking a cautionary approach. It's not impacting on our productivity and service delivery to our community. So we feel that we're able to take this position without impacting on our community.
How do we know it's not impacting it?
Because the forward-facing parts of our service delivery are in place and operating essentially as they were prior to COVID. It's really the back-end operations that are being done out of people's houses rather than out of the office.
Okay. I'm not sure could I have a shot at an amendment?
Yes.
I just wonder whether it might be useful instead of from 1 July, and this may not be acceptable, but to resume as soon as practicable following return to step 3 of the road out, or what it's called. And I'll just explain, I'm just trying to find a way through really, in that there's, look, I don't feel that it does currently subscribe to state recommendations as such, but I do hear what's happening around the chamber. We are going to have a rescission motion to get back into play. So it makes sense that perhaps we set some position now that we have the rescission motion and it's left in the hands of the CEO, subject to where the state is in regard to the recommendations.
Don't need a rescission. That's okay. Yeah. Do you want to answer?
Oh, sorry, what was the question?
You're seeking whether or not we need a rescission motion, basically.
I thought that was the case, but if that's doubtful, I do need to ask that. Yes.
Yeah. No, sorry.
Sorry if I
That's okay.
misinterpreted your question.
Yeah.
But that's what I think they were trying to find out.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, and sorry, Councillor Piggott. I was just clarifying. In essence, you don't need a rescission motion. You just need a recommendation to come back. We're using the words rescind 1, 2, and 7, 8 here, just to be clear about the action. My intention going forward was to provide councillors with recommendations via my CEO report that council would consider in terms of the transition coming out. Having said that, Councillor Davies seen fit to bring this notice of motion up this evening.
Right.
So do you wish to pursue the amendment, Councillor Piggott?
Look, I won't, but perhaps I'll speak in regard to it.
Go.
Look, I do support this. I absolutely understand where people are coming from in all directions. I do feel that it does impact as a group. It does impact how well we do debate and actually make decisions. And so I feel we do operate better face to face. I think it's not so much the technology. I mean, I think I think we all have really got our head around how we do it, but it is the perhaps non-personal. It's just the way we operate that I think there's been an absence of perhaps more full debate under this process, and I don't think that's healthy. I don't know, perhaps it's coronavirus related, but we certainly have had smaller agendas, so perhaps that's a good thing. But I don't know whether that's related to the fact that we are operating not in an ideal world. So I think generally, and I don't think there'd be probably much discussion or debate that, short of the health issues, we'd all prefer to be back in the chamber. I feel that we were probably, I think the CEO's guess of the 3 to 5 months on the social distancing was a pretty good shot at it, actually. I think it certainly won't be a short term. So it is something that, short of being on Zoom in November, we do need to sort out. So And I think the advice coming from the state is not saying stay away. It is saying, set yourself up so you can operate well with social distancing. It doesn't say do everything on Zoom, and it hasn't for some time. I would argue, actually, and we are now in a great position. And short of that going backwards, I think it'll only get better in terms of no current infections in the state. And so I think that background, while the virus is, we need to be alert to it, has subsided somewhat, and the instructions really are, go about your business, but be mindful of social distancing. So I think the concept that has come up with is a good one. So I support the motion. I think it is something we're going to have to sort out. I don't think things are going to change dramatically in the near term, and perhaps step 3 is the magic wand. My understanding of the steps is that it doesn't actually change much particularly. I think certainly when we're requiring staff to come back, then we should make arrangements for elected members to come back. And if that's the trigger, then perhaps that's the one we work to. I think that'll be pretty close to 1st of July. I think the next step will certainly be illegal. Then this obviously would not we would not progress. But I don't see that happening. I think 1st of July will coincide with when we'll be having staff coming back in, and I think we should do that ourselves. So I support the motion.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, I just need to be clear, and Councillor Davey may wish to clarify this. I hear a lot of councillors saying they're supporting or not supporting the motion, but if I can just draw your attention to point 2, which at the moment says the council chamber or the community centre, I think we need to be clear on which way we are going to, which way we are, the direction we're taking. Otherwise, I don't have a clear direction. I just need some help with that one. Through you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Next one to speak is Councillor Lemon.
I have another question, if I may. Can you, through you to the CEO, could I please be reminded what stage 3 is? Because I think that, this virus is around and we're going to have to manage it until there's an antidote or a treatment for it. And I can't see either of those showing up in the next 12 months. So, I mean, the CEO's actually said that he's got a preference for us not to meet in person. But what's the stage 3 loosenings that would trigger that reluctance to go away? What is it about stage 3? Is it open borders? Can you just remind me why stage 3 is more important than where we are now, please? Did you hear any of that?
Oh, sorry, my screen's just gone blank.
It's okay, we're getting
oh, sorry, I've just been provided with a summary of stage 3. Now, bear in mind, I think we need to bear in mind, we all know that the landscape's changing, if we think about the weekend, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But
Restaurants.
What I was referring to is, it says future steps for consideration: larger gatherings, indoor contact sport, nightclubs and standing hospitality, casinos and gaming venues, stadiums, larger entertainment venues, food courts, spas, saunas, state border restrictions, travel into protected communities, indoor playgrounds, amusement arcades, fitness classes greater than 10 people. I guess, so that, in my mind, was the trigger where, whilst we might technically still have to manage the presence of COVID-19, we'll call it the social anxiety around COVID-19 should be significantly reduced.
Can I just do a follow-up on that, please?
Yes.
Are you assuming with stage 3 relaxation that social distancing won't be a part of that anymore?
It is still assumed to a certain extent.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think social distancing is going to be in some shape or form will be with us for quite some time.
Yes.
Having said that, and you probably will have all observed this if you visited any shopping centre in the last week, the broader community seem to be having a scant disregard for social distancing. But obviously, because we need to set an example, we need to obviously comply with that.
Can I just follow up on that? Churches and groups, community groups, have to submit plans to the state government if they want to resume groups in a building. And I know that at least one church has had to submit plans to have 20 people in one area of the church, 11 in another area of the church, and another 11 in another area of the church, which would make a maximum of only 42. And the plan is all based on social distancing and the square meters of the space in which they sit or potentially would sit. So the rules are based on the amount of space that a number of people you can have within the size of the space. So it's about the 1.5 distancing. I did go to a hotel for lunch last week, and they had a very small number in the front bar where they were allowed to eat, and they had exactly the 20 space for 20 people indoors to sit and eat, and each table was socially distanced. Every table had, of course, been reserved, but every table was social distance, and it was all dependent, and them talking to me, it was all dependent on what the regulations were in relation to the size and the space of the particular room, as well as the number of people allowed in it.
I think we all get what you've just told us, because we've all lived it as well as you. But can I just ask you this? When you went out to lunch, how close did the waiter get to you when he or she put down the plate?
Yeah. Can I answer that question with something I've been thinking about, and I guess.
Were you there too?
No.
No, I wasn't at that lunch, but obviously the waiter comes quite close, but he's only there for a number of seconds.
Yes.
My overarching concern was largely around the length of time we would be spending in that space. Hence my hesitation. That's my logic about being far more comfortable operating in the larger space, given the length of time that we do spend in council meetings together.
And just in response to the amount of time or distance, that would have been no different from when I was at the checkout at Coles in terms of time and distance. In fact, I was probably longer at a checkout at Coles than I would have been with the delivery of the plate. Right, Councillor Cornish, your name.
Thank you, Mayor Monceau. I'm just going to move that amendment that the CEO just requested a while ago, assuming, of course, that Councillor Davey and Davis might take it up, but to remove the council chamber or, so just designate the community centre halls, which is, I think, the clarification that the CEO was asking. So I'll move that as an amendment, unless, of course, Councillor Davies and Davies would like to accept that as a variation.
Can I speak?
Yep.
Yes, Councillor Davies.
I'm happy to accept that. Thank you, Councillor Cornish. That's a very good move in terms of what the CEO has told us. So hopefully Councillor Davis will support that as well.
Councillor Davis?
Is that what the CEO is confused about? I thought he said that he wasn't sure if we should. I don't know. What would you say?
No. Just to be totally clear, what both options that Councillor Davey has proposed to this evening are technically feasible and we are able to implement. As a CEO, my preferred option of those two is the community centre proposition. And I just needed clarity as to which of those council was going to be resolving on.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, I'll consent.
Could I then talk to the motion, Your Worship?
Yes.
Thank you. I will support the motion as it stands. As some of you know, I actually work for the state government, and I started back in my place of work as of today. It's optional this week, and next week we're all back on full deck. So all staff have to be back at work. So, you know, certainly the state government themselves are, you know, internally, we're coming back to life and bringing everyone back in. So I think with these measures in place and the larger size, we'll be able to handle ourselves. So I'm fully supportive of the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
I just had a question. There seems to be a lot of discussion about stage 3. My understanding is there is no stage 3. There's no dates, there's no requirements, there's no contemplation. I just downloaded it from their website and it's got
Councillor Davis, is this a question or are you speaking to the motion?
I've already spoken to the motion.
Therefore, you don't need to comment at all?
No, it's a question. Is there a stage 3? My understanding is there is no stage 3 as I just downloaded from the internet.
It's in the initial rhetoric, it was referred to as stage 3, but you're correct that there is no date locked in for stage 3 or the future position.
All the measures, right?
It's now being referred to as future steps.
Future steps. Okay, thank you.
So,
but the Premier Premier mentioned stage 3 on the radio today.
Yeah. But some of the rhetoric can be confusing from that's been coming out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Actually, one more question. Now that the state government have got their employees back, will the City of Burnside Council also consider bringing our employees back?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I should say I'm not deliberately withholding our staff from coming back, and I appreciate Councillor Cornish sharing what the state's doing. I wasn't aware of that. And so it'll actually trigger a conversation with my senior staff tomorrow to reassess our position.
Cool.
Question. Sorry, now Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if the CEO could clarify with the legal advice and read us for the councillors the alert from Kelly Jones of the 1st of June. I can't access it on my system. So I just wondered if you had access to that and were able to provide that to the meeting.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Look, I don't have it to hand, but I'll provide a précis if that's okay, Councillor Davey.
Thank you.
Kelly Jones, and I'm sure you've all received this information, I believe, at some point. Kelly Jones just provided clarity around local government elected members' ordinary meetings, and essentially provided that we aren't constrained by the same meeting number requirements as the general public when they attend our meetings. We're essentially exempt. However, being exempt, we still have to ensure social distancing measures are put in place. It's a fairly short précis, but that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Right. I don't have anyone on that screen anymore. Councillor Lemon, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I'll speak to the motion. I'm actually quite happy to support this. I feel that we're going to be managing this virus for another 12 months, if not longer, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. And while I appreciate Councillor Turnbull being comfy at home, and I will personally disclose that I never want to wear proper clothes again as long as I live, you know, I'm sitting here right now in my slippers. I do believe that we need we have a duty and an obligation to our residents to set the tone. And while things have relaxed, and I'll use this as an example, I actually feel quite comfortable sitting in a chamber set up with social distancing with all 13 of you plus staff. Now, I know that every one of you washes their hands because I've seen you do it. I know that you are all careful about staying healthy because I've observed you over many years. So I actually feel a lot more comfortable sitting with you guys in a chamber that's been set up by staff than I do standing at the checkout. And I certainly feel more comfortable than getting a plate put in front of me that's been cooked in a kitchen where I haven't, in fact, eyeballed the chef or the kitchen hand. When you look at this virus and how it's transmitted, what you've got, and I've taken, you know, I mean, we've all consumed the news avidly, especially those of us of a certain age. And what I've seen is that there's been clusters where you've got someone that's got the virus and you've had it at the Adelaide airport and you've had it at a McDonald's delivery place. And if you've got someone that's got the virus and it brings a cluster, there's not a lot you can do about it except maintain your social distance, which we're actually advocating that we will do when we meet again in person. But I would be really surprised if any of the 20 people that might be in this room were ever going to be, ever came across a cluster or were part of a cluster. I feel very safe with you. I find it interesting that I'm actually saying this, but I do. You are all responsible people. And as responsible people, we can in fact meet, we can be live streamed, and we can show the residents of Burnside and other councils across the state how to do it, how to be responsible, how to manage our business in a continuing uncertain world, because it is uncertain still. And I have complete confidence. And if any of you actually want to shake my hand, I will take a restraining order out against you. I'm kidding. None of us are going to get close to each other. None of us are going to get beyond that social distancing. We're all too careful. We're all very conscious of what we're doing. So I'm not frightened of this. I think going back in July to proper meetings where we're actually wearing proper clothes is a very good thing, and something, it's a fine thing to show our community and a fine thing to show the community in terms of doing it well. So I'm very happy to support this motion.
Councillor Henschke.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Look, the more I read about the principles of COVID-19 on my app, my COVID app, the more questions I have, and I'm starting to feel really uncomfortable with us deciding, you know, how to run the council chamber, the employees of the council, their attendance. For example, the principle at the moment is that we reduce the potential spread by reducing the number of close contacts. And I'm reading directly from my COVID app. It says, limit the amount of time undertaking indoor activities with people you don't know by pre-ordering or keeping sessions shorter than 2 hours. So our sessions will go for more than 2 hours, and we're making assumptions about the size of the room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think we're going to take the precautionary principle and not rush into this. And we've got a CEO, and I believe we've delegated running the organisation to him. And on that principle, I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Turnbull, you have a question?
Yes, my question is, would the council be liable if any of us did get COVID-19? We can all be responsible, wash our hands, socially distance and everything, but we can still get it. And I don't feel comfortable about coming back with these. I know you're responsible people. I think you're very responsible, but somebody can get it anytime from some stranger, whatever you're doing. You might be at a restaurant, might be somewhere. And I would rather go with what the CEO says. I trust him and I trust the whole administration that they could implement safety measures to keep us all safe. So I will not support the motion. Thank you.
Sorry. Would the mayor like to? I believe Councillor Turnbull has already spoken to the motion.
I'm just
okay. Would council be liable? Okay. Would council be liable?
Do not
I mean,
need
you were very quick to jump on me.
Excuse me, Councillor Davis. You do not need to tell me my job. I'll caution you now about being rude and disrespectful of the mayor's role.
Well, I'm asking.
I'll caution you now, and I was discussing the issue with. And I wasn't going to be rude and interrupt Councillor Turnbull. Excuse me, but if she continued on any further, I would have.
You interrupted me.
And she did come to her
my question. Can I repeat my question?
No,
would the council be liable?
Don't repeat it, Councillor Turnbull. I do know the question, and that's what I was just having a short discussion with the CEO before I got him to respond.
Seems like there's
different. I was interrupted rudely again, a second time, by Councillor Davis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the principles that we have in regard for here is how we can provide a safe work environment. And in terms of our legal protection, I can't go into that because I'm not a lawyer, but I know how I'm treating it with our staff. And as long as I'm following the government guidelines and doing all I can to ensure that there's a safe as possible environment, any liability that may exist is severely mitigated.
Fair enough.
So I think for context to assist the debate, when this notice came before me, my first assessment was, could it be implemented safely? And the short answer is yes, I feel it can be implemented safely, but I think one option is a more precautionary option than the other. Hopefully that provides some clarity. Does that assist, Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, it does.
Yeah.
Leave it open. Councillor Davis, you have a question?
Yeah, my question was about how the rules for questions apply and making statements during questions, and if the same rules apply to different people.
My answer to that is no, they do not. And one thing about my extra training that you sent me for was that I was reminded that all actions, all conversations during council meetings needed to be respectful. And I request that. I was respectful to you when I interrupted. You were not respectful to me when you interrupted me and Councillor Turnbull. I ask for respect. That is all. And you're doing it again. And that is all that I wish from all elected members. And I expect that from everybody, to treat me with respect, and I will treat you with respect. I did not interrupt you, except to say that you were not in the right position to be interrupting. And according to the rules on interruption, according to here, a member behaving in an improper or disorderly manner cause an interruption or interrupt another member who is speaking. You were speaking out of turn. I interrupted you. Councillor Turnbull was speaking inappropriately, and I was about to say something to her when I was waiting for her to at least finish a sentence. She did not finish the sentence. She did finish the sentence, hence I did not bother to continue with that.
Yeah, my point is that you didn't wait for me to finish the sentence until you interrupted me, but you waited for Councillor Turnbull for a good minute to finish her entire, she got to speak again, but you didn't wait. It was essentially immediate for me.
Excuse me, that this argument can continue on forever, and it's not going to. I'm finishing it right now, Councillor Davis. No more interruptions. And that applies to you right now, and you can wave your finger and point it all the time you like, but don't do it. Show some respect. Now, the next person is Councillor Lemon.
With respect, may I ask another question?
Yeah, of course you may.
And it's to the CEO. A lot of the debate tonight has actually focused on your reluctance reluctance in starting council meetings face to face. Could you please tell me, and it's a two-parter, so when are you prepared to start meetings face to face? And secondly, how are you going to manage those that are seriously nervous and don't want to ever start meetings again until there's a vaccine?
Through Madam Mayor, the first part first. I must admit, when this notice first came to me, it was requesting that we started the meetings from the date of this resolution. Now that we're talking about 1 July, I had always had in my mind that 1 July was going to be the trigger point in terms of a reassessment of our position. So in terms of reconsidering our situation at 1 July, I will admit I have a reasonable level of comfort that was originally my reassessment point anyway. Sorry, and I've just lost the second part of the question.
I'll repeat it if you like.
Yes, please.
Well, given that the 1st of July you're gonna do it, the next meeting after the 1st of July is not till the 9th of July. How are you going to manage those councillors that don't want to come back till there's a vaccine?
My intention was always to provide an environment that councillors would have been comfortable in, and I think it would have always been important to manage the real issues and I'll call it a COVID-19 anxieties that exist. I firmly believe one of the key ways I would have managed it was to try and get us meeting in a larger space than that chamber, because I feel that the openness of the environment will assist in the actual and psychological management of people's perceptions and feelings at the time. So in some ways, this is how I would have managed it. I would have looked at the reality of the possibility of meeting in the community.
Can I ask a mischievous question, please?
Sorry. What was it? Sorry, I missed that, Councillor.
I'd like to ask a mischievous question, if I may. It's not nasty, it's just mischievous.
Ask away, Councillor.
How close are you two sitting together now?
Just a little more than 1 metre apart.
Yes, I am conscious that for expediency, we are sitting perhaps closer to 1.5.
Thanks.
And we also have Matt Spearman in here, who is at 1.5, and also Rob Dabrowski, who's also at 1.5. And when we meet, we are 1.5 apart when we have our regular weekly meetings. Right, the next person to speak is Councillor Hubel. Ask a question, I believe.
That's right. Thank you, Your Worship. I have spoken on this previously. The question is for the CEO, and to give context to the question, I feel that the debate's gone off topic a little bit. So I just wanted to clarify some things, if I could. Chris, have you been monitoring the COVID situation quite diligently on a daily basis since we have changed our meeting procedures?
Absolutely.
And a few follow-ups. Can I assume that you have the best interests of your staff as well as the elected members balanced with the expediency of the meetings as they stand?
Yeah, if Madam Mayor, as I think I said earlier, my preference is to be back meeting face to face with you all at some point in time, but I want to do that in the safest possible way, having regard for where the Premier is at in his messaging. And again, sorry, I've forgotten the second part of your question.
No, it was just it was talking about balancing.
Sorry, balancing. Yes, yeah. So in short, my key priority, amongst many other things, is for the safety of my staff and elected members. And so my decisions are always made with a risk management lens, which is saying what's the best environment, and I have to have regard for where my elected members are at, and my staff included. So it will always be a balance. And of course, I understand that there will be a point when we will come back to face-to-face meetings. But I want to do that in a manner which is conducive to people being comfortable in that environment.
Thank you, Chris. It's what I suspected was the case. Just one last query. If this motion were to get up this evening, and we did move back to face in July, would we be moving back to face sooner than you would have planned to, given your independent assessment of the landscape?
Yep. Through Madam Mayor, I think the thing that we're all aware of is the pace the landscape changes in COVID-19. We saw it going into COVID-19, how assumptions we made yesterday were incorrect the next day. So I'm the first one to say that coming out of it, I'd always pegged the 1 July as a key review date. But I guess I'll state now that if the resolution gets up, I'll be more than happy to implement it. That's my role. And in light of the conversations, particularly that Councillor Cornish shared with us, it seems that we are moving at perhaps a faster pace than I had initially estimated we may be moving at. So, yeah. Does that provide a little bit of insight?
It does. Thank you, Chris.
Councillor Cornish, you have a question?
I do, thank you, Mayor. And it sort of follows on with those sort of questions that Councillor Hubel asked. And predominantly it's, I presume this motion, if it does get up, would be predicated on the fact that everything is sort of status quo with no new cases, no active cases, etc., etc. If a second wave hits South Australia, I would expect some different changes that this council and chamber might have to come to when it comes to 1st of July.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Mayor, essentially it's like every decision council makes. We make it with the best information we have at our hand at the time. And of course, should the situation worsen, we will review the position. But also conversely, should the position change to the positive, we'll also review that situation as well. Thank you.
I have no names up there asking to speak or ask questions, so I'm going to go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. It was a very interesting discussion and debate. Thank you very much to the CEO, Carly, and his team for investigating all these options and for his recommendation. I know he's put a lot of time into looking through all these options. I believe we're at the stage where we can prepare ourselves to meet safely on the premises. I really think that we can ensure a safe working environment for all elected members and members of the staff who need to be there. Everyone recognises we've got significant challenges, the current video meetings. There's lots of technical issues, despite the best efforts of Matt Spearman and his terrific team. We've got loss of sound and other functional barriers. I just went completely offline tonight when I was all signed up to the meeting and all prepared to start, and I lost about 10 minutes of the meeting. I missed a whole lot of items. So It's interesting to hear consideration of the other options that were possible, and that the CEO and his team have done a lot of work on looking at the options, such as the ballroom and the newly refurbished town hall. It's fascinating to hear about their acoustic problems, but I think that the community centre, as it's proposed by the CEO, could be utilised by us for face-to-face meetings at zero cost. It has good acoustics, it has sufficient space, and we'll be able to communicate with our live streaming still with our community. So it sounds like this is the option we should try. We can ensure we're able to safely meet there. I'll reiterate the advice in the alert from Kennedy Jones, which was sent to us by the CEO on Monday, the 1st of June, that council meetings are not subject to prohibited gatherings controls. We have been very conservative in continuing our electronic meetings to this date. So they're not, council meetings aren't subject to this as long as the public aren't present, to protect them, not for any other reason. And I might also add that there is no intent on my part to exclude or minimise public question time. I've accepted that's what council wants, but this isn't possible anyway at the moment with our video meetings. Our community can ask questions at any time through their elected members, as my constituents have been doing at any time. So thank you all for your very thoughtful considerations. I hope you're able to support this motion. I think in the capable hands of the CEO, we can resume face-to-face meetings and function optimally to carry out our duties as councillors for this community. So I hope you'll support this.
Those in favour? 2, 3, 5. I think it's 6. They had a casting vote. Right. It appears to be a tie, and therefore there will be a casting vote. And my casting vote will be based on the medical advice that I've been provided. At my age, it is not recommended by my doctor that I sit in any confined room for 4 hours or more. And for that reason, I will not support the motion. So the motion is lost.
Could I have a division, please?
Certainly. So those who are for.
So just asking to put their hands down.
So you have to put your hands down again and then put them back up again. So those in favour, put your hands up again, please. Has that changed? No. Still 6. Okay. Councillor Cornish. If in favour of Councillor Cornish, Councillor Piggott, Councillor Lemon, Councillor Hubel, Councillor Davey and Councillor Davis. Those against, Councillor Jones, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Carbone, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Dawes, Councillor and the Mayor. No, there must be someone missing. 1, 2, 3. Councillor Hughes. Yeah. Sorry, you just went off the screen, Councillor Hughes. Yeah. And the Mayor. Right, we move on to the next one. Oh no, we go through the reports.
Yes, calling them out.
Reports of officers, item 13. I'll ask to see who wishes to withdraw these for debate. 13.1. Councillor Piggott. Audit Committee. 13.2. No one is withdrawing that one. So, Councillor Cornish, you're moving in line with the motion, with the recommendation, and seconded by Councillor Lemon. Those in favour appear to have a number of them up there already. Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Urban and Community, 13.3. Since no one is raising their hand to withdraw it, who would like to move it? Councillor Hughes is moving and Councillor Cornish seconding. Those in favour? Carried. Policy Review, Memorials and Heritage Plaques Policy. Councillor Henschke, you wish to withdraw it for discussion?
Yes.
Thank you. And draft the strategic plan 13.5. No one wishes to withdraw that. Oh yes, Councillor Piggott, you wish to withdraw it, or are you moving the motion? Withdrawing. Okay. Right, then we move. Oh, we've done that. Now, Councillor Cornish, you did have a question without notice that you didn't get through earlier. Do you still wish to ask it? Because now might be a good time to do so. Otherwise, if you're happy, we will get a report to you in relation to the Regal.
I was really using it to filibuster since we needed some time for Councillor Davey to get back on board, and I was going to help you out there by doing a bit of the Dorothy Dixer and a promotion of the great work that we're doing at the Regal Theatre. So
reiterate the great work. Can't wait for it to reopen when we're allowed to. I wouldn't want to be doing what some theatres in Europe are doing, that is physically removing seats to accommodate and to ensure the appropriate physical distancing. Okay, so we'll go back to 13.1, which is Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Filibuster, bloody hell, this meeting's had everything, hasn't it? Good heavens. Look, I just wanted to withdraw this. I'm happy with the officer's recommendation, which basically receives and notes the report by the Chief Executive on the 100-day progress. And only really take the opportunity, I guess, because I feel it merits it. It's a good report. I thank him for it. I'm sure the first 100 days and thereafter perhaps hasn't quite panned out as he thought they may when he started on the 17th of January, and that is indeed true of us all. But yeah, look, I think it's a very good report. It reads very positively, as it should, and I congratulate the CEO on his efforts thus far. And thank him for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Davey. Councillor Davey, you need to press your unmute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Start again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm happy to second it. It's an excellent report. I'd just like a bit of clarification on item 7 on page 15. About the city master plan, and this is a great idea, but I thought that the traffic management plan, or traffic management assessment and development of a plan was separate from a city master plan. Could the CEO please clarify that?
Just a second.
One feeds into another.
Yeah. Through Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor Davey. I think it's fair to say they're intertwined. One will feed into the other one. So the traffic component will feed into the city master plan. Yeah. So one essentially can't exist without the other, but they're separate but conjoined.
So just a follow-up question. But the traffic management plan would be undertaken first to inform the city master plan? Is that the intent?
I think we're still working through the timing of it. Essentially, they'll probably, to be honest, they'll probably happen in, lost my word, at the same time. Simultaneously, that's the word. Thank you. They'll have to simultaneously then come together.
And another final question, will we be workshopping this in the proposed layout of it and planning and all of that?
Through Madam Mayor, absolutely. These two documents, or the one final document, will need to have obviously the full support of council, and to get that, we'll have to have some significant amount of workshops to ensure that councillors' thoughts and expectations are taken into account.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Lemon, you have a question or you wish to speak on this matter?
Has anyone seconded this yet? Oh,
yes. Councillor Davey seconded it.
Okay. I read this very, very carefully and was really, really disappointed I didn't see anywhere in there how happy the new CEO was to have met such a fabulous group of councillors. That's all.
That was remiss of me.
Very.
Yes.
Right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I don't see any hands up, so if that's the case, I go back to Councillor Pickett.
I'm happy to put it to the vote.
Right. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, carried. Now we move to the 13.4 Memorials and Heritage Plaques Policy. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I, Councillor Henschke, move that Council adopts the Memorials and Heritage Plaques Policy and note the associated new Memorials and Heritage Plaques Management Protocol. Well, this is an evolution of the desire of residents to celebrate their heritage. And we've seen overwhelmingly in the community engagement for our long-term strategic plan, the community engagement results clearly put their appreciation of older houses and character on top of their list of why they love being in the city of Burnside. This policy will mean that residents can contact the council for suggested locations, but we know that initially we have a small budget of only $10,000 that will go towards highlighting some key heritage locations around Burnside Village, Knightsbridge, Glen Osmond, Waterfall Gully and Beaumont. I do have a question for the administration, however, just to clarify. Some residents do talk about the Indigenous stories, perhaps that they've heard of in relation to particular buildings many years ago. So I'm wondering whether the policy does need to refer to the Aboriginal Heritage Act. It's not specifically listed as relevant legislation, but it's just something I'm wondering whether that could be added. It's my question.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can just refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through your worship, yeah, there's absolutely no reason why that can't be added as a policy under the code.
Thank you. And the other question I have is, how will, I presume the administration will raise awareness with residents once we enact this policy and protocol, raise their awareness about the opportunity for them to...
Oh, I do in here, yeah. Oh, good. How do you turn it on? How do you turn it on in here?
I think oh, there we go. For residents to request plaques if they so desire.
Through Madam Mayor, again, I'll refer to Mr. Cant just to give us an update on the consultation side of this policy.
Through your worship, we will certainly promote this scheme through the council's website, and we will advertise it in future editions of the Burnside Focus magazine and other examples such as that. As part of the first run of this promotion, we've actually recognised quite a few properties in the historic part of Burnside, and we'll actually make contact with some of the owners of those properties as well to seek their permission.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all. Yeah, we have a clear desire by the community to commemorate architecture, historical figures and events, social themes, and customs and ways of life, and all the things that have been very important to the lives of residents that have been here for a very long time. Some of them have lived in the areas for over 50 years, and they have stories that connect them to the past, even connecting them to the families that lost their sons in the war. And I do commend the administration in crafting up this policy, working closely with the residents to date, and especially in the climate of the Planning and Design Code. I think this is a very important change to our policy. It's very timely, and I do hope the Chamber carries this policy through. Thank you.
Next is Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, I'm very happy. Pardon?
Sorry, you seconding it?
I certainly am seconding this
Thank you.
motion. I'm very happy to second this motion. And I think it's a very smart decision of the administration to tie in the heritage plaques with the memorials policy that we've had existing. And in fact, my family has used that on a park bench as well, memorialising family members. So I would certainly support this. It's we've got a lot of great heritage, built heritage in the city of Burnside, and the blue plaques and incorporating that into a policy and having this protocol is a very smart way of doing it. It certainly has been brought up in the Heritage Reference Group at our first and only meeting that we've been able to have prior to COVID and the outbreak and restrictions. So I certainly I do second this motion, and I commend it to the Chamber.
Thank you. Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I think this is excellent. I've really enjoyed seeing this evolve. Look, and I just think this just fits really well with the new priority of place in our draft strategic plan. You know, it is it's really promoting character as well as heritage being cherished and celebrated. So I think this is wonderful.
Next is Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. This is a question, a definite question. On page 94, 526, it says, new memorials will not be permitted in the following locations. 1, 2, 3. The fourth one, 26.4, is biodiversity sites. Where are they? You know, how do we define that? Is it in a park, part of a park? What is it?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer this to Mr. Cant.
Through your worship, there's quite a few biodiversity sites throughout the city. It'd be difficult me to list them all just now, but I can certainly identify them, and I can provide that and take it on notice for you.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, I shall go back to Councillor Henschke to sum up. Councillor Cornish seconded it. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Cornish, you have a question?
I do have a question, and it flows on from Councillor Turnbull's sort of question. Specifically, if it is more appropriate for a memorial to be put into a biodiversity site, and I am considering specifically Councillor Bills here, would that be something that the Chamber could make a decision on to overrule this policy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst policies are there for guidance, Council always reserves the right to resolve on a matter.
Thank you.
Right, no further hands. So Councillor Henschke, it's back to you.
Right, thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's thank you all for that debate, and I think it's also something I didn't add was that now we have such amazing databases and websites, the possibilities for connecting the information on the plaques with information about that locality are really powerful, and opportunities for digital interaction on, when you're walking around, to be able to be walking around possibly with an app and understand the stories in the local area would be fantastic. So these are all things for the future, and it's going to be business as usual, integrating technology into our day-to-day business, I read, in our strategy. This is going to really help with our goals in our strategic plan. And I'll put it to the vote. Thank you.
So those who wish to support it, please raise your hands. Carried. Thank you. And we now move to Councillor Piggott, 13.5, the draft strategic plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd like to propose the officer's recommendation. I actually pulled this, I'm glad I have, but only pulled this because it didn't look like anybody else was going to. And I think it speaks volumes, perhaps, of the quality of the work that, that in actual fact, no one in the chamber felt the need to raise it, tweak with it. And, I think that is, the staff should be congratulated. I do remember having a little bit of a dummy spit when the elected member session on this was put out sort of at the height of coronavirus. I felt that perhaps we were going far too early, and we should sort of see where the world went to before we actually settled on a 10-year plan. And it's interesting when you read it with the benefit of now not being clear of it, but certainly being hopefully on the other side of it and on the way out, that it stacks up so well. And I think I do like the way it's been put together. There's been a lot of work go in. A lot of people have their chance to say. I've felt going through the things that were raised and how they were addressed was really very good. And what we end up with, I think, is a reasonably streamlined strategic plan, which I think is also good. These things are often hard to match to because they are large, but I think we've really slimmed it down to the key plays, albeit there's quite a number of them still that are important to the city of Burnside. So I'm interested to see what happens next in regard to the consultation, but I'd be confident that it goes pretty close, I think, to what our ratepayers want from the city of Burnside. So congratulations to the staff, and I'm happy to put the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Davey, you wish to second?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I endorse all of Councillor Piggott's comments, but I just have one concern about the draft document and the photos. And I noticed that the front page is lovely with the youngsters in Hazelwood Park. That's very typical. But we seem to have not very, and we've got great multicultural representation, but we don't have any, how should I put it, mature age Anglo people, of whom there are hundreds who walk the areas, and who perhaps we could replace one of the photos with. Perhaps on page 5, where we've got a community, a resilient, healthy and connected community, we could replace the party photo with perhaps a photo of one of our walking clubs, or something like that, of mature age residents. Is that possible?
Through Madam Mayor, certainly happy to place a photograph that caters for your thoughts. Yep, certainly happy to do that.
Thank you. Otherwise, yes, great work, and it's a huge piece of work, and it's come together really well. One final question for community consultation. Are we going to make available for all of those who don't use the web the opportunity to have a reply paid envelope and a form to send back as their comments? This wasn't done for the budget, the recent budget community consultation, and it caused a fair bit of consternation amongst some of my mature age constituents. So are we able to make that provision for this consultation, please?
Through Madam Mayor, certainly it's not a reply paid envelope. We provide information where they can list the reply paid reference number on their own envelope, and that'll proceed through as if it was prepaid. And we also had the same provision on the draft budget, just to clarify that.
Sorry, what I meant was some sort of a format that they can just fill out. They don't want to write a letter, because it wasn't, sorry, the last budget round did not have that provision.
Sorry, if I may, Madam Mayor, you mean like a sort of pro forma that would be ease of return? Certainly happy to look at that.
Thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't clear about that, but that would be much appreciated. Thanks. Councillor Davis?
Yeah. Something that stood out to me in the consultation, especially of our strategic plan, I think it's in 1.5 as one of our goals, is surrounding small business. And it certainly did seem to be a theme from a lot of people. Sorry, my light's gone off again. Let me go and wave at it. Sorry about that. And I think it's something that we have in the past, I suppose, in the council chamber debated in terms of differential rates for small business and what exactly we can do for them. And I think we kind of had a view that we perhaps shouldn't do that much. That seemed to be the impression, that because they didn't pay differential rates, then we shouldn't do anything for small business. But I know that
sorry, we have to deal with a point of order at this point in time. Councillor Hubel has raised a point of order.
Well, he would.
Would you just please explain, Councillor Hubel?
Yeah, and this was for when Councillor Davey was speaking. I just felt I felt very uncomfortable signalling out a specific race of person that needed more representation in the visuals.
It potentially can be seen that way.
And I understand what Councillor Davey was trying to say, but I just think there's a more sensitive ways of putting that forward.
I note your concern, Councillor Hubel, did make me feel uncomfortable at the time, but I did appreciate what Councillor Davey was trying to say, and I also appreciate your concern, and it is a real concern, and it may be a concern of some people who are watching or listening into this meeting. So I do take and note your point. Back to Councillor Davis.
Oh, back to me. Yeah, I think it's important that we represent all of our community equally. Yeah, in relation to small business, and I think what we should start to flesh out as a council chamber is whether we do have a focus on it. And I know that the City of Burnside Council, they're actually promoting a lot of seminars, for example, with Propel SA, and I think that's really good. But I wonder if there is more that we could be doing in more of an active role to promote certain precincts. So I know that the McGill Village is an excellent example of council promoting different precincts and the small businesses that go there. But could we look at other precincts within our community? I know that there was like just reading some of the consultation was around that they didn't necessarily support the large shopping centres or sorry, the large chains so much, but rather small precincts. So I think it's something to note now as we put into our strategic plan, or as we move forward with it, considering what more we can do to support our local businesses and having a clear, line and policy or clear way that we're actually going to do that, and whether we do want to continue to do that, and whether we actually want to explore differential rates. And I think that's potentially something we should do and discuss directly with our small businesses, whether they want to, as a group, pull together and promote themselves more. I suppose like we're doing for McGill Village, which we've done extensively. So could we perhaps do that for, the Wattle Park, supermarket, or the one in my ward, the Food Land down the road, or even in Jane's ward across from the Regal, as those are small economic centres, and whether we could start to attract more people there from outside of the city. So, or even encourage local residents to go there and use them more. So I'd just like to raise that now, and perhaps something we can deal with at a later stage.
Through Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor Davis. You agree with your thoughts. It is a conversation about the level that we get involved in community economic development. We've certainly got some preliminary thoughts, and obviously going forward, when we put together the action plans that support the strategic plan, we'll certainly be having a deeper conversation with Council about that.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Oh, no, I just wanted to make a comment about and clarify my previous comments, and to say I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause offence to anybody, but I didn't know how I could outline my concerns more cogently because the visuals are out of balance with our demographics. Does that clarify things a bit better?
Thank you. Point taken, Councillor Davey. Now we go back to Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on what Councillor Davis was just saying about supporting business, because in my reading of this, it was clear that the 351 people who were surveyed to bring us to this point, there was not a great appetite for, they didn't see council's role in supporting business. So I actually think that there's a conversation we can have with our community. I think it's important that we have this in our plan, but to date, the community has told us they're not really interested and they don't see that is our purview. But I think it is, because the other thing that they were saying was they're not interested in big supermarkets, but they're interested in corner shops. So when we look at something like Dulwich Corner or McGill Village, they're wanting to actually have that sort of village atmosphere, but they're not wanting to have a Westfield. And that's how I saw it. So I actually think we should explore this further. We've dropped prosperity from one of our headings as a result of what they've told us to date. And it's going to be, and what we've now not going to do when we go out to community consultation is actually talk about this with the community more broadly, which is a pity, because I think that there was somewhere we could go with that. And it would appear that we're not now going to go there. But I think that irrespective, there is a conversation we need to have at some stage about corner stores and the place that they have in placemaking in a lot of ways, in bringing communities together in a lot of ways. And it's not in this anymore, because the 351 people that were in fact surveyed, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
That were surveyed probably didn't understand what they were being asked, because they did respond to it, but in a different way, and we weren't flexible or agile or quickly agile to change that for this larger survey. And I think that was an opportunity lost.
I just wanted to point out that Mr. Cant has come on chat and said that priorities 1.5 and 3.5 do cover both yours and Councillor Davis's concerns. And I think too, Councillor Lemon, this survey was being done at during the first part of COVID. And I think if people, before and after, early February, so probably mostly before. And I think if people were asked now about how they feel about small business, their responses would probably be much more reflective of the concerns and the loss of business opportunity that has arisen as a result of COVID. So, I agree with you, but I think if we ask now, they probably would be much more concerned, as most of the community do appear to be concerned of that, and how much the whole, Premier has driven this whole idea of supporting a local community has been very, very clear for all of us. And I think people feel socially responsible about trying to support the local cafe or the local restaurant or with takeaways, etc., to try and keep businesses going. So I appreciate both your comments. I'm looking at Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question. The community engagement results. We didn't engage with the community on our subsidiaries specifically, and I'm just curious about that topic and how we engage with our community on it, because they're quite, our subsidiary businesses are quite a, financial pressure in some cases in the future. So will we be engaging with them in some way about our subsidiaries and what the subsidiaries do, what they would like from them?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I wouldn't envisage that we're going to specifically engage our community on our subsidiaries. The way we would engage around that topic is on the strategic goals that we expect those subsidiaries to achieve. And then really it's a decision of council on how we achieve those strategic goals. So I wouldn't specifically go to our community and ask them about our subsidiaries. That really is a matter for council to retain in its purview and assess the best way to deliver that goal.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. And now go back to Councillor Piggott. There's no other further hands up in the
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the debate. I might have gone a bit early in terms of people wanting to tweak it. I'd just like to pick up the small business issue, actually, because I feel all three speakers that spoke to it are not correct. Actually, I think it does actually reflect my understanding of Burnside. It didn't surprise me at all, and I don't think it's an anti-business and the whole support local. I think Burnside very much does support local. If you look at something like McGill Village and the work being done there, now we'll have a economic benefit to the businesses in there, but the main reason for doing that is to actually improve it as a community asset, to take some of the road back so that local residents can actually enjoy that place in the village it has historically been. So, and I think in 1.5 and 3.5 means that Burnside needs to look after small business. Dulwich is another very good example. It does need to look after small business in this strategic plan, but we are primarily a residential city, and the importance of those businesses are how they dovetail into the experience of the community. So I don't think the answer would be any different now, and I don't think we should look at this afresh down the track. I think we should work to landing priority 1.5 and 3.5 along with everything else in the strategic plan. But let's see what the community says on it. I'm happy to put it to the vote. Thanks.
All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried. I seek now a move in to have a 10-minute break, because the only items we have left, unless there's any other business, we only have confidentials to move to now, and it would make sense to take the break so that people who have to leave the building can do so. Yes, Councillor Davey, you happy to move that way?
No, I have a question before we move. You said
where does your question relate to, Councillor Davey?
To the Brownhill Creek. It's number 14.6. Brownhill. Okay. There were some issues raised in the press over the weekend. Can you hear me?
Yes, Councillor Davey. Oh, yes, Councillor Davey.
There were some issues raised in the press late last week and over the weekend about the number of trees that are being felled in the South Park Lands section of the works for the Brownhill Creek Stormwater Board. And apparently the Parklands Authority is preparing a paper to put to the Adelaide City Council for their approval. I just wanted to clarify our position in terms of, I don't recall reading about this number. Apparently there's about 100 trees that are scheduled to be removed for the stormwater detention development and wetland. And I don't recall seeing any report or any paperwork that outlines that to us and we are a member of that board. Can you please clarify this?
I have to say, I don't remember seeing anything like
Yeah, I'll take that on notice, Councillor Davey, because I just need to potentially refer back to some board papers. So I'll undertake to get you a response.
Thank you.
Right, so do Councillor Hubel, are you moving to have a 10-minute adjournment?
I am, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. And seconded by Councillor Hughes. Right, all those in favour? Right, we shall return at, I've got 5:02. What's that clock say? 4 minutes to. Okay, so 10 past?
10 past 9.
All right, we resume at 10 past 9.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
That's okay with everybody? Thank you. Oh, did you want to speak to them first?
No, that's all right. They can take the break.
Okay.
I'll get the break.
All right, welcome back. And I just note that Councillor Davis has left the meeting and will not be returning. Other business. I don't think there was anything we should be able to move straight into unless there's anyone who wishes to throw anything my way. We'll go straight to confidential items, and I seek a mover to move into confidential mode. No, the mic's working. Councillor Hughes, thank you. You're moving. And
happy to move.
seconded Councillor Turnbull. Right. And those in favour of moving into confidential mode, raising your hands. Thank you. Carried. Now, Matt, Mrs.